Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to TheNonProphets. This show was brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin, Texas. I'm the host, Jeff D. My co-hosts are Vic Farrow.
Hey.
And sitting in for Mary McManamy, we have Keryn Glasser.
Hey, folks. Good to be back.
Over there at the controls of our brand new, what are we, an MP3 stream now? How's this working, Russell?
We're an ASF stream, but we're saving to MP3.
This is all new.
Our new archive.
This is a whole new technological solution to getting the program out there that all of Atheist Network is using, right? And we're just this is our first time.
That is correct.
With the new technology. So, if anything goes horribly wrong, now you know why. Our opening music was Spiraling Shape by They Might Be Giants. Just to quote from the lyrics, "Putting all reason aside, you exchange what you've got for a thing that's exotic and strange." And another line from that song, "And nobody knows what it's really like, but everyone says it's great." I'm convinced that this song is about religion. But I don't actually know. Sometimes They Might Be Giants are a little hard to interpret.
Vagueness, huh?
You could say that. We're live. We're live August 17, 2002. The Atheist Community of Austin is a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state.
And really cool.
And that also. And vague also.
Not so much.
Not so much vague. Oh boy. We have weekly meetings Sunday mornings at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop at 307 West 5th Street at 10:30 a.m. except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. in the Longhorn Room of Fur's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. Next lecture is going to be sometime in September, and I don't know exactly when is the first Sunday in September. Anybody know offhand?
Right after the last
September 2nd, I think.
Our last lecture was the 2nd, you think? Could be.
The first
Vic's going to find out. On our last lecture, we had scheduled this fellow who was going to talk about neuro-linguistic programming, and he insists that he just had travel problems, and that's why he didn't show up. I think that he got into the fact that we're a bunch of rationalists, and we're probably going to rip him to shreds. ACA board meetings are at 10 a.m.
I'm so looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't show up because I wasn't able to make that. That
September
lecture.
1st is the first Sunday.
September 1. September 1. And I don't know what we have lined up, if anything. ACA board meetings are at 10 a.m. right before the regular meeting on the second Sunday of each month. That would be then the 8th. If you shop at the Randall's Food Store chain, you can give them our nonprofit organization number, which is 5158, and 1% of your purchase will automatically be donated to the Atheist Community of Austin.
Which we will put to good use.
Yeah. It's far from our biggest source of income at the ACA, but every little bit helps.
That would be the tip cup at the
That would be the tip cup at the bagel shop, probably. Yeah. Godless Gamers meet. No, that would be Arvel.
Oh, yeah. Well,
we have this one fellow who's donated huge amounts of money to our group, and of course, we already thought he was an awesome dude, and now we have to make a point of mentioning that at every opportunity. Godless Gamers meet Monday nights at 7 p.m. here at Glasser Studios. ACA Happy Hour is at Antonio's, again, Austin, Texas, near Highway 35 and 183, Thursday nights at 7:30. For more information, you can call our voicemail at area code 512-371-2911 or visit the ACA website at www.atheist-community.org. Just a reminder, if you're not listening to our show live right now, or if you are and don't already know this, when you listen to the live show, you can join into the chat room that runs on the Atheist Network. Just go to www.atheistnetwork.com, click on the chat link, and you'll find yourself in a chat room full of other people that are listening to the live audio stream. And Saturdays from 2 to 3:30, it's us. 2 to 3:30 Central Time. It's us, and you can get in the chat room, and we monitor that while the show is going. I see it up on Russell's screen right now, and a handful of people in there already. So don't forget about that. That's www.atheistnetwork.com, and click the chat link. Okay. First of all, it's our first news press release.
Oh yeah.
From that we've been able to do on the audio show from the Atheist Community of Austin. For immediate release, August 15, 2002. Michelle Gadouche, co-chair, Atheist Community of Austin. Secular memorial event secular memorial event scheduled for September 11. The Atheist Community of Austin announced plans today to conduct a non-religious commemoration of the lives lost in last year's terrorist attacks. The public memorial gathering, scheduled from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, September 11, will be Wow, what is wrong with my ability to speak today? Will be held at Woolridge Square, 900 Guadalupe Street in downtown Austin. In the wake of last year's attacks, we have seen a swelling of popular opinion aligning patriotism and religion. Atheists, humanists, freethinkers, and the non-religious will not be relegated to the fringes of society. Hundreds of us were among those lost last September 11, and millions of us grieve, just like all Americans. An estimated 500 people among those who died in the attacks considered themselves non-religious. However, most memorial services have failed to respect their most cherished convictions about the nature of the universe and their place in it. In Austin, as in the rest of the country, atheists, freethinkers, humanists, and the non-religious were alienated last year when even government-sponsored memorial events assumed religiosity on the part of both victims and mourners. This year, the ACA event, Reflections on September 11, a Secular Memorial, will provide an opportunity for those in attendance to put the events of the past year in perspective without appeals to supernatural authority. So, I think we mentioned we were going to be involved in that before. There is also, I should mention, on the web, there's the American Atheists, which is a large national atheist organization that we are not officially affiliated with. They are making an effort to encourage local groups to conduct secular memorials. And for more information on their effort, you can go to www.secularmemorials.org. If you encounter any instances of slurs, defamation, or discrimination against atheists or other non-believers in the U.S. media, write up what you heard, where you heard it, and any other pertinent details, and email it to ombuds@atheism.org. The National Atheist Ombuds will take that information, distribute it to local and national non-theist organizations who will distribute press releases regarding the reported subject matter. Godless Americans to march on Washington. Just about every political and social cause organization has done it. Gays, blacks, women, even the Promise Keepers. Groups of every ideological stripe have spoken out and demanded a seat at the table by mobilizing their supporters for a march or demonstration in our nation's capital. On Saturday, November 2, 2002, Godless Americans will make history and march on Washington. For more information on this event, also organized by American Atheists, and many of us are interested in participating in and supporting this effort also, go to www.godlessamericans.org.
There was a editorial in the National Review concerning this by a religious fellow from England,
and
who said his father was not only an atheist but a militant atheist.
Yeah,
and it got long-winded and boring, so I quit reading it. But he didn't have anything really significant to say. His one thing was, well, let's make it clear that it's not really a march on Washington, it's a march in Washington.
Well, yeah.
It's irrelevant.
Okay.
Just a side note on,
Yeah. Yeah, it is getting some press coverage, and most of it, twistedly biased in some weird way or another, but there you go. And one of the things I want to talk about today is an email exchange that I had on the subject of that, but more about that later. Now you can collect past episodes of The Non-Prophets and also an audio version of our sister show, The Atheist Experience, which airs on public access television only here in Austin, Texas, on a CD. Each CD includes a full month's worth of audio from both shows in both QuickTime and MP3 format, plus extra surprises. The CDs are $5 each. Contact atheist@mac.com for more info.
The surprises, is that like the little prize in the Cracker Jack box?
Usually it's like files of other neat stuff.
He's got video on it now.
Video, yes, right? Are we doing? Is he doing the TV
the video
show?
Clips of the former of past episodes of the television show.
Ah, cool.
And last one I got, I was watching some of it. Yep, there's some cool stuff on there.
What? I wasn't listening.
The videos.
Talking about there's now video on the CDs. The
cool.
The Atheist Experience CDs.
Yes, and I now have Ashley's email link up on the webpage. So if you want to buy those.
Oh. That atheist@mac.com is linked. It's an email link from our
website,
Atheist Community of Austin website at www.atheist-community.org. I'm thinking atheist@mac.com is probably easier to remember than
Remember both of them.
www.atheist-community.org.
Now bookmark them. There you go. Save yourself all the trouble. Just bookmark the damn thing.
But if you just say it 7 times over, maybe people will remember.
We try to read that into the record as many times as possible. Okay, so...
Well, tell me about this email exchange.
All right.
You're into.
I think I may have mentioned this on the audio show earlier, but just to recap, I'm on the Cryonics email list because I plan on having myself frozen and stored away after my physical process function, so that if the technology gets developed to restart me, then I'll be back again. That's the whole point, right? Sure, because if in fact in that condition you can be repaired, you're not really dead.
Yes.
You're
just temporarily disabled.
Sense.
I'm getting better.
So I'm on this email list, and that just as a side note, one of the things I don't think we have a news story on, but the Ted Williams story in the news, the baseball player who's...
Well, we've done him before.
Yeah, but there's a development.
Oh.
Last I heard, the executor of the state... Oh, just to recap for those people, because you've apparently not heard any of this.
No.
Ted Williams, famous old retired baseball player, had recently died,
atheist,
and then
right?
his son, that is what I've heard, is that he was an atheist. His son shipped him off to Alcor, which is a cryonics facility in Arizona, to be frozen. And this guy had several marriages and a daughter from a different marriage who apparently was also upset about the fact that she wasn't getting as big a cut of the family estate, raised a stink and said, "Oh no, I don't think he agreed to be frozen. I think that you're doing this for publicity and blah-de-blah-de-blah," and she challenged it. Well, apparently the executor of the estate was on her side saying, "No, I don't think the son had the right to do this," but there was a note that was produced by the son, and it was signed by Ted Williams saying, yes, Ted and his son and a different daughter all agreed that, is this family pact that they were all going to get frozen when it became necessary. So the last I've heard was that the daughter that is trying to get more of the money is trying to pursue this issue on her own, but that the main case against his getting frozen is now over.
Interesting.
So that's cool.
Now, are there religious people that choose cryonics?
Interesting that you should mention that, because, well, yeah. And it's a major point of contention in the mailing list, because most of the people in the mailing list are, technologically minded rationalists looking at this as, scientific solution to the problem of mortality.
Uh-huh.
But there are religious people that are interested, and some of them are on that mailing list, and so every once in a while when somebody says, darn that Christianity for promising people in eternity in happy land after they die, because that's damaging the sales, frankly, of these cryonics institutes that need to have enough customers to keep in business, because it gets considered that flaky. And then inevitably the religious guys on the group chime in and say, no, it's not necessarily blah blah blah. So anyway, actually that's not how my problem started. I got into an email tiff with I think his name, now I've forgotten, I think his name was Ettinger. No, that's it. Mr. Ettinger is actually the founder of the cryonics movement in the United States. He wrote a book about it that came out, 40 years ago now. And he runs one of the several cryonics facilities here in the United States. So there was this discussion of religion, and he chimed in to basically say, oh, wait a minute. What happened was an atheist posted about the march in Washington on the cryonics list, just as a service to other the atheists on the cryonics list to let them know that this event was going to happen. And Mr. Ettinger chimes in and says, we got to be very careful not to alienate the religious people because, however many sales we're losing because of what they're preaching, we're going to lose more if we alienate them all completely. And then he went off on a tirade about he doesn't believe in God, but he objects to being called an atheist because he doesn't assert that he knows there isn't a God, and that's just as irrational as asserting that you know that there is. And So I responded. Mostly I was upset that at his condemnation of the March on Washington as like a big, horrible mistake. And I said, I plan on going.
He sounds like a typical ambivalent politician.
Well, he's one of these militant agnostics, right?
I don't know, and you don't either.
Exactly. I mean, I thought those bumper stickers that say that were a joke, but no, militant agnostics say that. I mean, that angers them. The idea that any definition of God could be susceptible to rational disproof bothers them, right? They want to think, oh no, we don't want to go into that territory. We want to just say we don't know and therefore we don't believe and leave it at that, right? As opposed to embracing the clear insight of things like the problem from evil. And,
What's the fellow's name that wrote the book, Why People Believe Weird Stuff?
That's Michael Shermer.
He makes that same claim. It's just as rational.
I know. It depends sure, there are tons of God definitions out there that are vague and cannot be disproved.
Right.
And for those, saying that you don't know is as much as you can say with any authority. Of course, you can still say then, I don't believe. That becomes your personal choice. Right. So we got into this whole thing, and I mentioned that I planned on going, and this other person wrote in and basically said, I don't know, it sounds like a really dangerous thing for somebody who's supposed to be an immortalist, right, who interested in living a long, long, long time. Seems like a big mistake to go to Washington, D.C. and march as an atheist in a big crowd when Christians got guns. All right, so I wrote, I do not subscribe to a radical view of life extension which rules out all risk-taking. I don't see a whole lot of point to remaining alive unless I allow myself the freedom to take risks for the sake of goals that I consider important. But thank you for your concern. I will certainly watch my back. Yes,
Can you spell that guy's name for me, or just show me where
Ettinger. Okay. Nothing really bad about Mr. Ettinger. I mean, he's an old man now, and his attitude is not that unusual, for agnostics. But it was frustrating to have him lash out at the thing. I was actually planning on attending. All right, so a few days go by, this religion argument gets way out of hand, and there's this exchange. Thomas Donaldson wrote, and this is just jumping into an ongoing discussion. He writes, what kind of God would attack those who simply pay him no attention at all? To do so suggests that God has some kind of personality defect, needing constant assurance from everyone that he is worshipful by worshiping him. Such a God becomes far less than worth worshiping in the first place. If it isn't safe not to worship, then we should rightly spend our efforts on discovering ways to avoid this immature creature. And that was really great. And then John Grigg, who is a Mormon and cryonicist, writes, first of all, I believe God wants us to engage in worship for our own benefit, not God's. Worship keeps us mindful of the gospel of salvation and our need to live it. Which I wrote, believe what you want, but apparently we're talking about the same God who appears in the Old Testament. Now, unless you are claiming that the Old Testament is a load of rubbish, this deity is a jealous God who demands worship and tortures everyone who will not bend a knee to him. And then he goes and quotes my thing about, I'll watch my back, right? He quotes that, and he completely gets my name wrong, which I think is freakishly bizarre on an email exchange, where it's like right there, all you gotta do is cut and paste. But anyway, that's not the point. He said, I wrote my thing about, I'll watch my back. He says, having recently attended a funeral of some acquaintances who were mountain climbers, I can understand what you mean. I was told privately that despite their great experience, top-quality equipment, and knowledge, they got very careless, and that cost them their lives.
That relates to this how?
It really irritated me to hear repeatedly how God had decided it was their time to go. They made foolish decisions where they really knew better, and the last gamble they took cost them their lives. I feel so sorry for the wives and young kids left behind.
What?
I think I understand where he's coming from, and it pissed me off, so I wrote that. It irritates me to hear people who believe in an all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God excuse his inaction by criticizing the victims of his physical laws. If your God is all-knowing, then he knew those climbers were in trouble. If he's all-powerful, then he could have saved their lives no matter how foolish they were. And if he's all loving, then he'd have wanted to. If not for the sake of the climbers, then at least for the sake of the grieving families that you yourself claim to feel so sorry for. If you could have saved them, wouldn't you have? Of course. That makes you a better person than your God. By presenting this happy little story in response to my plan to attend the Godless Americans March, you are implying that if I wind up getting shot, then it's my own fault for being careless and foolish. And of course, that implication irritates me as well. The fault will lie with the God-fearing shooter and with religion, the practice of indoctrinating people into believing irrational things. Only religion could motivate an otherwise sane person to commit murder for the glory of their invisible friend, to excuse the supposedly omnipotent invisible friend's inaction when his physical laws kill people, or to suggest that prostrating ourselves before a higher power is for our own good.
Yep.
He didn't write back.
Yeah, well,
But that's a little of the fallout from the whole Godless March thing. Phew!
I saw, this is totally unrelated, but I saw a bumper sticker.
Yeah?
Which just proved my point that Christianity is the religion of slaves.
Oh boy.
It's a slave-minded religion.
Yeah.
It had a cross,
Yeah.
and the mathematical symbol for greater than,
Uh-huh.
followed by an I, the letter I, a capital letter,
Yeah.
followed by the mathematical symbol for less than. And underneath it had the caption is, Christ needs, what was it?
That doesn't
Jesus.
even make any sense.
It's saying that, you need to elevate Jesus and lessen yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it just proved my point right there. People believe you're
less
slaves.
than what?
Less than Jesus. You submit yourself
I don't understand.
to the idea that you're a slave
Right,
to this overseer. Jesus is the overseer. That's all there is to it.
Right. I don't understand why people cannot deal with the idea of being independent, free individuals who then choose to participate in, organizational structures where there is authority that is assigned at certain levels, right? And do that rationally from a perspective of, well, it's either that or we could all be slaves, or we could all live in a total anarchy where there's no kind of organization whatsoever, and that would pretty much mean going back to living in caves.
Right.
I don't understand why people can't just accept this, right? And then that gives them the freedom, if they're in some organization that they think isn't acting properly, then they have the personal freedom to criticize that. I mean, that's the give and take.
Yeah. In a country,
Instead, it's like everybody thinks, they're either completely insanely left wing, where everything has to be
By the book.
What I mean is that any kind of inequities in power are just not tolerable at all, right?
Yeah.
Which is not feasible, I don't think. I think we've seen that it's not feasible. Or they're extremely right-wing, where it's like, hey, if Joe Schmo is head of the corporation, then God put him there to be the head of that corporation. Like it said in that book about raising up chillins. Remember Russell?
Positions of power are positions of power are delegated by God. You should just do what they say mindlessly, and you'll be a happier person for it. It's odd to me that in America, we're in a country where one of our basic beliefs is the freedom of the individual.
Yeah.
Is that Christianity, this slave religion, is dominant? How is that? How can that be? How can people who, on the one hand, profess that they're Americans and they're all for the individual liberty and freedom and happiness and all that other stuff, still rationalize that with Christianity, whereas you're a slave to this overseer, warlord, who will kill you for any minor infraction?
One, we have a really, really crappy educational system.
No, that doesn't help much.
That hurts a lot. Two, we do have people in positions of authority that have abused it regularly, and people feel like they have no power to intervene in that, and so it's either become ostracized because you don't agree with the way things are done, or you simply accept it and then you got to rationalize it that somehow submitting to these abusive power figures is in itself a good thing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of crappy educational systems,
Yeah.
the idea of teaching creation science has reared its ugly head again.
Oh boy.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, evolution may be on its way out as the only theory taught in the origins of life in Cobb County schools. Cobb County would be in
Georgia?
Georgia, I
I
think.
see Atlanta Journal.
Yeah, that's right. So that's Georgia.
Yeah.
The school board is considering a policy that would allow science teachers to introduce alternative theories, loosely said, on the beginnings of life, including what one board member called scientific creationism. Okay, there's a contradiction in terms.
I know.
There's nothing scientific about creationism.
Now, if they want to introduce other hypotheses,
Yeah,
they could
fine.
do that.
But see, gosh, creationism is
And then we'll test
very vague.
Well, that's the evidence.
Anyway, all students at the Cobb High Schools already have biology textbooks that carry disclaimers saying biological evolution is a theory, not a fact. And now several board members are to say they are responding to parents and community pressures and want the district to start teaching alternative ideas in class. The board unanimously asked the attorney Wednesday to craft a policy that keeps the districts within legal bounds. Quote, the courts allow for multiple teachings. Okay, said board member Lynn.
I always say that when they just leave open this vague language that says you should teach something alternative to evolution, you should go ahead and teach like some Shinto or
Yeah,
you know,
let's teach the dream
American
time
Indian
from the Aborigines in Australia.
Yeah, you know, God baked all these gingerbread cookies, and some of them were too dark, so he put them in one spot.
Oh, okay.
But then, of course, all the Christians, like we said last week when we were talking about someone reading the Quran, would, get mad.
Well,
what is
not that
man.
alternative.
Oh,
Let's not get
man.
carried. We don't want to. We'll get into that a little bit later about what they think of Islam. The possibility of religious-based ideas being introduced to students as scientific theory angers biologists, as well it should, who say that students need better grounding. It's putting creationism and religion into the science classroom, said Ron Matson, assistant chairman of the Department of Biological and Physical Sciences at Kennesaw State. They are clouding the issue as to what science is and what it is not. You cannot scientifically disprove God did anything. That's what they call that, the non-falsification.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, right.
The issue has divided Americans since 1925 when Scopes was tried in Tennessee for teaching Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. As the district prepared to upgrade its science and health books for the first time in 7 years, several dozen parents opposed to biological. Several dozen. That's very small.
I mean, this is Georgia we're talking about.
Yeah, opposed to biological evolution, urged the board to reject 3 biology textbooks. The books emphasize Darwin's theory, which holds that all living things develop from earlier forms through slight variations over time, and that natural selection determines which species survives. Parents advocate the teaching of alternative theories. They really fond that word, alternative theories.
Sure, because alternative is suddenly this buzzword for good.
Yeah, including...
Right. Alternative anything is good.
You know that book you loaned me?
Yeah.
Intelligent Design and Its Critics?
Very long book.
Yeah, well, actually, I've just been skipping the creationist stuff and going straight to the
Which is probably a good idea because that's some really boring shit.
It's very annoying.
Yes.
But I think the essay I'm on right now makes the usual point that the Achilles heel of the creationist movement is presenting actual falsifiable facts, because when they're falsifiable, they get falsified every single time,
which they avoid doing.
The way the creationist movement now works is to avoid stating any concrete thing under any circumstances.
Right. And the one big failing is one of their, like in the wedge strategy thing, one of their statements was they were going to present scientific evidence, which they haven't presented any yet.
Right.
And they never will, because they don't have any.
But moon dust.
Yeah, but
right, but
but parents
that's all attacks on evolution. It's not evidence that their claim is true. Go ahead.
But parents teaching the alternative theories, including intelligent design, which holds that the variety of life on Earth results from a purposeful designer rather than random mutation, and that a higher intelligence guides the process. Well, we've just been through that.
Right. We did a whole episode of this show on the aftermath of a creationist debate at the University of Texas. Remember that? Right.
Oh, that was fun. That's the ending part.
The guy's whole the creationist entire argument boiled down to this. There's some, you can apply this mathematical formula to how complex a thing is, and if the number is higher than this, then it's sensible to call that the result of intelligent design. Okay, now that's all bullshit in the first place, because he just made up his way of applying the formula. He made up the numbers that he plugs into the formula, right? It's utter bullshit. But, okay, fine. Take that as his premise. Suppose there was a way of really objectively determining how complex a thing was, and then suppose there really was some point at which we could safely say that you couldn't get this much complexity over this point without intelligent organization behind it, right? I mean, he was just begging the question by assuming if it was more than this amount of complexity, it had to be design. The thing is, he hasn't explained where his God came from. And by his own admission, anything capable of doing all this design that he's crediting it with would have to be more complex than all of that complexity put together. So, if his argument is that the best theory is going to be the one that leaves the least unexplained complexity, which was his argument, then that's still evolution, because his theory postulates the existence of this God who's infinitely complex compared to everything else. His own argument is self-defeating. It's completely stupid.
Again, draw a circle in the road and follow it. That's about how it works, you know. But
well, you know, I've actually heard creationists say, "Oh, well, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." It's that simple, you know, because it's just one sentence, right? How's that complex?
Oh boy, really? That's their good grief.
Something like
but
that.
The school board in Cobb County, responded by keeping the biology textbooks that the parents wanted banned, but approving an insert that says, quote, "This textbook contains material on evolution. Evolution is a theory, not a fact. Regarding the origins of living things, this material should be approached with an open mind, studied carefully, and critically considered." Now let's see them apply that to their Bible.
Right, right. This Bible is a theory, not a fact.
Yeah.
It should be approached with an open mind.
Or any kind of mind, really.
And, hey, you know, I've always been a big proponent. If they want to have religion in schools, that's fine, as long as we get to have science in church.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
I mean, it seems fair. If that's how they want to do it, then I want, after the minister gives his sermon, I want a scientist to go up there and say, well, okay, now, here's the problem. This whole virgin birth thing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is what we know about biology. You know,
we have the technology today to actually make a virgin pregnant.
Sure. But it's technology. Right?
Yes.
Still not miracles.
Miracles.
But if they want to do it that way, sure. The problem is, they got a monopoly in their frickin' churches, right? They have absolute authority to say what will get said and what won't get said in their churches. But they're trying to destroy the power of the school boards, right?
Yeah.
Of the government-run public school system to have the authority to decide what's going to be.
I have a problem with saying the government-run public schools. And I know that a lot of the people who are proposing the vouchers are calling them the government schools. And okay, essentially they are they are a part of the government, but they're local. I mean, the federal government doesn't have an absolute control over public schools.
No, but it should.
It should. There should be a standard, and everybody should follow the same.
Federalized schools, there should be exactly the same amount of money spent on every single student in the country.
It shouldn't be
money schools in rich neighborhoods because they have more tax dollars. Their children get taught better. That's
pull
bullshit.
the tax money out of some other form other than property tax.
Yeah.
Pay everybody equally. Pay your teachers and have the same standards for every single school in the entire country. I totally agree with that. And I also think that I could make a case if they want to have labels in textbooks claiming that evolution is a theory, not a fact.
Labels in Bibles.
I think we can have a case made that we should put parental guide labels on Bibles. You know how you get them on the CDs?
That's a good idea.
Yeah. It's a parental advisory.
Yep.
On a Bible. There are stuff in there that makes rap records look like kindergarten class. Okay?
I have another...
But it's the parents that are reading the Bible to the kids.
No,
How
they're
would
not.
that
The parents don't read Bibles. The kids don't read them. These people who are preaching the loudest probably have never read 3 pages of their Bible.
Oh, that's true.
You know?
Speaking of the Bible, and how little these people know about it, we have another email correspondence here. Now, you remember, after September 11, I was pretty pissed off. And I wrote some essays on my website. One of them is called Enough is Enough. And I let people know exactly what I thought religion's role was in September 11 events. And every once in a while, some Christian stumbles across this and sends me a nice letter. So here's the latest letter.
Using the word loosely.
This one is not as bad. I mean, it says things we know are completely bullshit, but he's not intentionally insulting just to be insulting. He's insulting only because he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Jeff, I enjoyed looking through your website and truly masterful artworks. Thank you. I have to read this. I don't mean to praise my own artwork here. These are not my words.
It is good.
This is this Christian that wrote me. I'm sorry. Aren't you the same Jeff D. that did so much work for TSR games? I used to play those quite often. Yes, that's me. In reading your article on terrorism and religion, I had some thoughts on the matter. There is no doubt that all terrorist attacks are evil. They are cruel and unjustified. I would, however, disagree with the idea that all belief in the supernatural is wrong and leads to evil. Yeah, actually, the case I make is that religion lets people off the hook for having to actually be moral or ethical by claiming the existence of a divine lawgiver who is really above good and evil and right and wrong, who makes up the rules, and therefore, whenever you need different rules, you simply claim the divine lawgiver has changed the rules for this situation. Now you can do whatever you want.
Absolutely.
First, I would remind you that many more people have been killed in the name of atheism than in the name of God. Oh, you've heard this one. How many times have we heard this?
Oh, that one comes up a lot.
Some examples from this century would be Adolf Hitler,
not
6 million.
Not an atheist.
Wrong. Not an atheist.
Joseph Stalin, 20 million. Hitler was not an atheist, and Stalin didn't kill anyone in the name of atheism. No. He killed in the name of the state. There are no atheist holy books that advise anyone to go out and commit genocide. On the other hand, there are many theistic holy books which do exactly that. Next, I would point out that one should never judge a belief system by the abuse of that system. I'm not judging theistic belief on the basis of its abuses. I'm judging it on the basis that it's a bad idea to strongly believe anything that has not been shown to be true. The abuses are simply examples of the inherent danger in that. I don't believe for a moment that God told all those European nobles to go on crusade to the Holy Land and butcher people. Neither do I, but in my case it's because I don't believe in your God in the first place. I think they just use religion as an excuse for political and financial gain.
Of course they do, that's the whole problem.
Well, yeah. You seem to be saying that as long as the deity in question didn't personally issue the orders, then the belief system cannot be held accountable. I strongly disagree. The belief system is a tool by which those who seek political and financial power can manipulate people into doing irrational things. Look at it this way. If your God would simply go to the trouble of proving his existence, faith would not be necessary. And if faith wasn't necessary, religion would not be about indoctrinating people into mindlessly accepting authoritarian claims without a shred of evidence. And if religion wasn't about that, then it would not be such a powerful tool for manipulating large groups of people into committing atrocities. So instead of judging the particular worldview by its abusers, judge it by its source. I don't think one will find traits such as evil, ambition, greed, hatred, malice, and tyranny in the person of Jesus Christ. I don't care what the source of a bad idea is. It is a bad idea to indoctrinate people into believing things without evidence, no matter what the source. But since you bring up Jesus, ambition. Jesus claimed to be greater than the temple, Matthew 12:6. Jesus claimed to be greater than Jonas, Matthew 12:41. Jesus said, "He that is not with me is against me," Matthew 12:30. Greed. Jesus instructed his disciples to take a horse without first asking its owner, Matthew 21. Jesus wasted money on himself that might have helped to feed the poor. This was the famous anointing his head with the expensive oils, and I think it was Judas came up and said, "You shouldn't do that. That is expensive, and that money would feed so many poor people." And Jesus said, "Ha! That poor people, you only ever have one of me." That's a. Jesus led his disciples on excursions to fields taking wanted for themselves. Mark 2:23. Malice. Jesus irrationally cursed a fig tree just because it wasn't bearing any fruit, even though it wasn't even fig season. Mark 11, verse 13 to 14. Jesus said, "I came not to send peace, but a sword." He advised his disciples to arm themselves in Luke 22:36. And here's something, bet you didn't know this. Jesus made the whip used to drive the merchants from the temple. Says in the Bible, he crafted that whip himself. Now there's an image. There's Jesus sitting there, twisting little
pieces of leather together.
Yeah. This will teach him. Tyranny. Jesus never spoke out against the practice of slavery. He mentioned it at all. He treated it as if it was the most natural thing in the world for slaves to remain slaves. Jesus treated women as subservient to men. Jesus told a parable wherein the character of the Lord says, "But those mine enemies which would not that I should reign over them, bring them hither and slay them before me." In the parable, the Lord is clearly a metaphor for Jesus, or at least God. That's Luke 19. Hatred. The entire Christian religion is based upon the hatred of non-Christians. No matter how much they deny it, the belief that anyone who is not a Christian deserves to suffer an eternity of torment is exactly as much an expression of hatred as any other form of bigotry.
We haven't done the Franklin
We have a story about proving it.
We'll do
that next. That Christians call this love does not improve matters. If anything, that sort of callousness makes it worse. Matters are not helped by the ideas and attitudes represented elsewhere in the Bible. The Bible promotes the idea that might makes right. It condemns all human beings on the basis of the actions of our mythological ancestors, Adam and Eve. God comes across as a vindictive, bloodthirsty monster. So I'm not surprised when people who read the Bible, believe it, and call their God loving, commit atrocities. What surprises me is that the innate goodness of human beings is strong enough to prevent Christians from committing more atrocities than they do. And I'm pleased to discover that human history is a record of gradual abandonment of these sorts of savage superstitions in favor of the concepts of universal human dignity, rights, and equality. Back to the letter. There are passages in the Quran that teach Muslims to be violent toward Christians and Jews, and this is wrong. Fortunately, not all Muslims are terrorists. Likewise, the Bible glorifies acts of violence against the enemies of God. But that is beside the point. The Quran and the Bible both call for unquestioning belief in unproven supernatural claims, and that is the problem. Okay, so there's that letter. Yeah, so the younger...
Let me tell you, the quiz question.
Yeah?
What famous person in October drew criticism after he called Islam, quote, a very evil and wicked religion?
I don't know, that could be anybody.
Probably
that would be Billy Graham's son.
Billy Graham's son?
Yes.
Okay.
Graham Jr. Call him Jr. from now on.
Okay.
Graham W.
Graham W. The son of evangelist Billy Graham added to his harsh criticism.
What's his first name?
Good question. Franklin. That's
not
right.
Ted?
Franklin Graham.
It'd be Teddy Graham.
Teddy Graham. Billy must have been thinking about that. Added to Franklin.
Ted. What is that? Ted is short for something already. Richard?
Theodore.
Edward.
Yes.
There's a Monty Python skit about that. Everyone calls me Ted.
Okay.
So it's not Edward either. Darn.
Adding to his harsh criticism of Islam, said Muslim leaders haven't done enough to show their sorrow over September 11th, and he challenges them to help rebuild New York or compensate the victim's family. By the way, there's now a $1 trillion lawsuit against the enablers of terrorism.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
That's basically
how are we gonna
the dog and pony show. But
it's really hard to imagine how that could possibly ever amount to anything.
Quote, I am certainly not preaching against Muslim people. Funny. I thought he said that Islam was a very evil and wicked religion.
And didn't he just say to the Muslims had not done enough, or Muslim leaders had not done enough. So not Muslim people unless they're leaders of the Muslim people.
Right. Mm-hmm. Quote, I am concerned about our nation, and on September 11th last year we were attacked by followers of Islam claiming to do this in the name of Islam.
Hey, dude, didn't your dad go on his TV show and say that the reason that attack succeeded is because your God...
That's Falwell.
That's Falwell.
It was Falwell and him.
No, it was Falwell,
Falwell and Robertson.
Robertson. Oh, heck. All right.
Yeah,
I withdraw that accusation. Sorry.
Graham's there's a book called, I think, Jesus Doesn't Live Here Anymore. It's one of Billy Graham's... it was a fellow that Billy Graham grew up in the priesthood or in the clergy with, and who actually got away from the church and became an atheist afterwards. I'll have to look that up and get back to you. I got the book at home, but I forgot the name. And that's completely out of...
I'll go ahead.
I'm concerned about the nation, and on September we were attacked by the followers of Islam. The silence of the clerics around the world is frightening to me. Well, the silence of people regarding Catholic pedophilia is frightening to me.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean,
everything's silent, though. I've got. Give me a minute, and I'll look up a webpage for you that has links to all the different Islamic clerics who have come out and said, "We are very sorry that those nuts did that."
That's what I said. I was saying it when I was reading this the first time. I said, "Was this guy not paying attention?" Right after this happened, there were people coming out. This is not true Islam. Islam doesn't do this.
What about the missionaries that American churches send over to Afghanistan to convert people away from that religion? They did that, right? And imprisoned for a while. It's like, hey, they got their religion. They have a right to their religion. What are we doing sending people over there to mess with their heads? We didn't hear the American religious leaders come out and saying, "Oh, we're so sorry. It's bad for Christians to go over there and to try to change other people's cultural beliefs." No, none of that. It's like, oh, darn you, Muslims for
persecuting
us. No, you're persecuting them. You're persecuting them by sending your people over there to try to change their religious beliefs.
Well, Franklin also says
a shred of contrition about that.
Franklin also says, how come they haven't come to this country? How come they haven't apologized to the American people? Again,
how you haven't gone
has he not been paying attention?
Well, there's that. But
how come the country is full of freaking Muslims? What's he talking about?
Right.
He's an idiot, but that's beside the point. How come they haven't reassured the American people that this is not true Islam and that these people are not acting in the name of Allah? They are not acting in the name of Islam. Well, they're again not paying attention. The younger Graham, this article from the Boston.
Wait a minute. But wait a minute. Even if they did say that, I mean, it's exactly the same bullshit. Okay. I mean, I have heard Muslim leaders come out and say that, right? Oh, Islam's not about killing the Jews and all that stuff. Exactly. And that's complete and utter bullshit. I've seen the passages from the Quran where it basically says the Jews are horrible, evil monsters, and anytime you see one, you're supposed to kill one. Mm-hmm. I've seen those passages. That is a load of crap, right? And when they say that, they are being just as two-faced as the Christians who write to me, I don't believe, what did he say? I don't believe that, for a moment, that God told all those European nobles to go on crusade to the Holy Land and butcher people. Dude, I mean, that is what your religion is about. Your religion is about world conquest. That's all they were doing. For you to say that, we're sorry, that didn't really represent our religion is complete and utter crap.
Well, here's the most entertaining portion of this entire article. Graham Jr. writes in his new book entitled The Name that, quote, Islam, unlike Christianity, has among its basic teachings that a deep intolerance for those who follow other faiths. Listen to this.
And where are all non-Christians going, Mr. Graham?
Yeah, well, listen to this. From John 14:6, Graham's Bible.
Right.
Quote, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but through me.
How more...
Does this sound intolerant to you?
Yeah, how much more tolerant can you get than to simply write off all of the world's population that doesn't happen to join your club? I mean, come on.
Russell handed me this one. We don't teach a deep intolerance for those who follow other faiths. We just want them to know that they're going to burn in hell forever.
Yeah.
Oh boy. What can you say? Well, some good news. Or you got something else?
Let's just trade back and forth here. Now, we've gotten a lot of mail in response to our show, and I want to thank all of you. We don't make a practice of always reading all the mail we get, but there's some of it stacked up since the last time I was on the show, and so I want to just take a moment to acknowledge these people that wrote in. Dennis Hendricks wrote, I enjoy your radio show very much and want to ask a general question. Do you believe Christians generally consider atheists to be more of a threat to them and their beliefs than other religions, or vice versa? If so, why? When I say threat, I mean something that undermines their beliefs or seems totally foreign. This has interested me for a long time, and I'm working on a website involving this topic. I thought maybe some people involved in the atheist group could answer this for me better than I could in my rather limited experience, although I am in Georgia, in the county with reportedly the most churches statewide. I'm sure opinions would probably vary on this. Maybe you can discuss this on your radio program. Well, let's do that for a moment now. The question is, in general, do Christians seem more threatened by atheists or by competing religions? And I'd have to say atheists.
I would say atheists.
I would say that Christians do feel threatened more by atheists than they would by any other religion, simply because we challenge the very nature of faith itself.
I think that's true. Because when you turn to another religion, at least those people are acknowledging, hey, here's a good thing to do. Yeah, believe some shit that nobody can prove, right? At least they're applying the same kind of thinking.
They have the wrong religion, but they've got a religion, so they got that.
Oh yeah, they say as much.
I think what a lot of people also believe is that if you're from another religion, you still all basically believe in God, and you still basically have a God that dictates a set of morals. So it's very easy to believe that obviously atheists have no morals because they have no God to tell them what morals are. Right. And that would be why we're more threatening.
I have no morals. I have good common sense, which I think is better.
I have that. Yeah, I think as evidence that they're more threatened by atheists, you got to look at the poll, which admittedly came out before September 11, that said that the American people would be more amenable to electing a Muslim president than an atheist president. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, that's some pretty powerful statistics there.
Star Jones. She let an atheist babysit her children, but she wouldn't vote for one for president.
Right.
I was in one of my poli-sci classes, not poli-sci, but it was one of my politics classes when I was in grad school, and I had some classmate, turn to me and say, "Hey, Keryn, you should run for president someday because you want to change the world, and you have all these great things to live by." And I'm like, "That's a great idea. I should try it," but nobody would elect me. He's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, I'm female. Second of all, I'm Jewish. Third of all, I'm an atheist. Fourth of all, I'm left-wing. Fifth of all, I'm vegetarian, left-handed. Take your pick.
Yeah, once you got those other things established, they'll dig for the rest of it. Yeah. If there's anything else that they can be mad about, they'll dig it up if they're pissed off by the top few.
You've seen that movie, The Candidate, right? Which goes
yes,
that very same
that was
thing.
A very good movie.
It was a very good movie, and I thought just displayed exactly what would happen if something...
Oh, yeah.
But times change, folks. Times change.
That's true.
We have gone through, in this country, much more liberal periods, much more intellectual periods,
And it swings from side to side.
I mean, this is why there's any point to us having this radio show and talking about this stuff at all. Because if we start doing something now, if we start thinking about these problems now, if we start addressing these problems now, eventually it'll swing back the other way for a while until everybody forgets how freaking important it is to slap down this religious bullshit, and it'll grow in the cracks of our society again and emerge and have another heyday. I mean, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Dennis. That was a very interesting question. Allison Randall wrote, I just heard your recent non-profits show mentioning the Summum group about the monument debate. Cool. That was, there's a Ten Commandments issue that came up in some town in Utah.
Oh, yeah?
Where this cult that believes in, UFO aliens and pyramid power and all this stuff, they want to erect a monument with their axioms from their religion standing next to the Ten Commandments. And the judge ruled, well, yeah, you gotta let them, because if you're gonna have one religion's sayings be on a monument on public land, you got to let them all. I haven't heard an update on that story. Last I heard they were going to fight it. Ellison has a website. It's www.insolitology.com. That's insolitology.com/organized/summum.htm. That's SUMMUM, where there's some pretty funny tidbits of information about the summum cult.
That wouldn't be insaniology?
I'm not sure what is meant by the word insolitology, but
yeah.
Can I see that web address?
Yeah, in a second.
Okay.
Finally, Dan Burke wrote, I'm a synth pop musician who is a rabid atheist as well. The Infidel guy has been playing my song Infidel, which I wrote after 9/11 to express my anger at retaliation, anger at religion and the event itself. It can be downloaded for free from my MP3.com site at www.mp3.com/nucleon, and the N's at the beginning and the end of the word nucleon are capitalized, and it's spelled Nukleon. I appreciate the show you provide and the Atheist Network. People need to hear another view, namely the correct one. And Nucleon offered us that song for our opening music, and we may well use it at some point. We have this huge list of songs that I put together, and when it seems like the right day for it, we will indeed use it. Okay, more news.
The little thing I forgot to mention, back to the Cobb, the Atlanta...
Russell? Top one.
Oh, thanks.
The Cobb County Schools teaching evolution. There was a little opinion poll in the Atlanta Journal that the disclaimer as being not a scientific sampling does not reflect the opinions of the general public, but only those who chose to participate. But the question was, do you favor the concept of scientific creationism being taught in public schools? 53% said no. Against 44% who said yes, and against the 3% who said yes, but only if evolution is also mentioned. So, kind of, they'll let you teach the creationism.
Mentioned?
But, yeah, mentioned. But 53% said no. So, it's a small majority, but the majority is against it.
Well, that is a sign that things are not all completely fucked up.
Right.
And that's still nice to know, but still, that many people thought that evolution or that creationism ought to be taught is still pretty creepy.
Yeah, there is hope. There's a couple bits of good news.
Yeah, let's have some good news.
Good news in Chattoosa. This is also in Georgia, I believe. Yeah, pretty sure it's in Georgia. Yeah, Atlanta. Okay, Atlanta ACLU is one. Resident of Chattoosa named Tom Oden is a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the Ringgold City concerning the hanging of religious plaques. He says the objective has been met with the removal of the display from the City Hall August 13th. And he will not pursue the matter any further. What I was after, quoting him, has been accomplished very quietly, and that's all I really was after. In an emergency meeting called August the 13th, the city council members came to a consensus to remove the Ten Commandments and Lord's Prayer, as well as a blank plaque recognizing those of all faiths, from the Ringgold City Hall. The decision came after the American Civil...
Get a hold of yourself, man.
The decision came after the American Civil Liberties Union and the Americans United for the Separation of Church and State filed suit against the city on behalf of Odom and a John Doe plaintiff. Odom lives near Ringgold for several years, is married, and has 3 sons. I want people, quoting Odom, I want people to understand that I am not supporting some other religion or even the lack of religion or non-religion, Odom said. What I am promoting is the Constitution and the protection of everyone's rights. Now, Odom served in Vietnam as a U.S. Army Ranger, Special Forces Green Beret. He says, quote, Now I have the opportunity to defend the Constitution again some 30 years later. And basically he stood up against this. He was right. The court said they didn't even get to court. The city just decided to back down before it ever got to court because it's an expensive lawsuit and they will lose.
Good.
Another local poll. How do you feel about the Ten Commandments and the Lord's Prayer on blank plaque coming down from the walls of the Ringgold City Hall? 4% are mad as hell. 91% are glad. and only 6% are sad.
Now, isn't that a little bit biased the way they're taking those numbers, though? I mean, it's nice that the numbers came out the way they did, but there's two different ways to be against it, and only one way to be for it. Shouldn't it be like glad and ecstatic?
Right. There you go. And that's not it. Another bit of good news. Where is it? You're
going to let me do one after this, right?
Yes. Okay. Two bits of good news, and then you can actually speak. I won't hog the whole show. In Little Rock, Arkansas.
That's so ironic.
A second federal judge has struck down a religious exemption to the state statute requiring vaccinations before children can attend public schools.
Excellent.
The exemption, granted only to members of recognized churches, violates the Establishment and Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. Judge Susan Weber Wright ruled yesterday, which would have been the 13th.
This exemption was allowing people to say, no, you're not going to immunize my kids because I believe God says that immunizations is evil.
You can't give them shots because that's putting that science stuff in them, and they won't be right after that.
Right.
Wait, so they have to do that in school, or they don't?
They have to allow their children to be vaccinated.
They had an exemption
just for the sake of the kids.
By recognized churches, and the judges ruled that it violates the Establishment and Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. The decision left intact the state's vaccination requirement, meaning students are still subject to the requirement with no religious exemption to immunizations.
Okay.
Very good. The ruling came in a lawsuit brought by Cynthia Bourne, a mother of a student who refused to be vaccinated. The lawsuit said that although Ashley Boone is not a member of a recognized religious group with tenets against vaccinations, she personally believes that vaccinations are against the will of her God. Cabos.
Her God, it was different than everybody else.
Taking math tests are against the will of my God. So,
right.
Yeah, I used to say work is against my religion, but I do it every day. So that's two bits of good news.
Check this out. This is not exactly good news. It's like, we kind of suspected it all along, and now there's some evidence that this may in fact be the case. Paranormal belief may come down to brain chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
A small Swiss study has found that...
we can take drugs and get rid of it?
If this is true, it's possible that we're talking about the potential of a cure for religiosity. And along with religiosity, I mean belief in UFOs and all that other bullshit. A small Swiss study has found that people who believe in the paranormal have higher levels of dopamine in their brains. The chemical is a neurotransmitter. They're dope heads. The chemical is a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and addiction. High levels are also associated with people who pick out patterns where there are none and who find significance in coincidence. Now, I am now going to mention the fact that next week we're going to talk about the movie Signs, which I'm not going to talk about today because I'm the only person here who's seen it, and I'm hopping mad, and I really desperately want to talk about it. I'll give these folks a chance to catch up, and then we will...
I'll wait for video.
And so if you listen to our show and you don't want the movie ruined for it, see it before next Saturday. Right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we're going to ruin the movie for you completely.
Yeah, let's go.
A drug which increased the production of dopamine in the brain was given to 20 self-confessed believers and 20 skeptics. It made the skeptics act more like the believers did before they took the treatment.
Huh?
Okay, what did it do?
It made the skeptics, it doesn't say.
Oh.
But it made the skeptics more likely to see patterns where there were none, to find significance in coincidence, and to have paranormal beliefs. Peter Brugger, a neurologist from the University Hospital in Zurich, carried out the study. He asked both groups to distinguish real faces from scrambled faces as images were flashed up briefly on a screen. Before the L-Dopa drug treatment, believers were more likely than skeptics to see a face when there wasn't one, and skeptics were more likely to miss real faces. Both groups made more mistakes under the influence of the drug, but the skeptics became more likely to see scrambled faces as the real thing. So, that's very interesting. And Mr. Brugger says, dopamine seems to help people see patterns. Now, seeing patterns is a fine thing, right? Our brains are nothing if not pattern recognition machines.
Yes.
That's incredibly important. But there's got to be a balance. There's got to be a limit to the seeing of patterns. I think we did talk about this on the show before. At least I've had this discussion with my friend Denis, who is an artist. He recently went to a conference on computer graphics programs.
Me too.
And there was a program there that you know how they'll do now they can do computer animation based on the movements of a human being. So like they'll have people wear these suits with little dots on them, and they'll track the motion of those dots and then transmit those motions to a computer rendered person to get a realistic kind of motion. And they had a similar thing for faces. You could put dots on a person's face, and then a camera would watch the motions of those dots and transfer those motions onto a virtual image. Well, they've got a way of doing that now without the dots. They just have software that you train the camera on somebody's face. They go, and it identifies where the eyes are and the nose and the nostrils and the mouth and all that, and it figures out from looking at the face without any special tracking dots what the face is doing. The creepy thing is, you turn this camera on like a crumpled piece of cloth, and it will detect faces in the crumpled cloth.
It's programmed to look for faces.
Oh my God.
Right. Because that's a pattern recognition machine. So there's a use to it, but you don't want to go too far. You don't want to think that there is significance in things that are not significant, because that is counterproductive. So
do you have a machine that finds a cartoon god?
I don't know. Maybe someday. Now, the thing that creeps me out the most about this, though, is not... I mean, I think it's a really interesting ethical question whether we ought to support the idea of a cure for religiosity, right? What's much more creepy is the idea of this being used by religions to make more religious people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Right?
By finding a drug that increases your...
very afraid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think it would even
creepy.
pass through anything being passed as something that's supposed to cure religiosity. I mean, I think they try and pass it off as something that's supposed to cure seeing aliens or having imaginary friends. I'm surprised.
But there are people who think their imaginary friends are like, an important personal thing that you shouldn't take away from them. And there's people who think that their UFO beliefs are amount to they have the personal freedom to believe that if they want. So
if we get a drug,
would it be okay to give that to people? I don't know. That's a very difficult question.
If you get a drug that cures religiosity, according to the courts, the children who go to public school will not be exempt from the...
That's right. And they will not be able to say, no, you can't immunize my kid against belief in their invisible friend.
Oh,
what else you got? You got more good news?
Well, no. This is the bad news.
Oh, well, let me do some more, not exactly good news, but like, kind of, interesting. 1/3 of the Church of England clergy do not believe in the resurrection, according to a story from July 31st. 1/3 of the Church of England clergy doubt or disbelieve in the physical resurrection, and only half are convinced of the truth of the virgin birth, according to a new survey. The poll of nearly 2,000 of the Church's 10,000 clergy also found that only half believe that faith in Christ is the only route to salvation. Well, that's good, but still, we're talking about 1,000 people of the 2,000 surveyed who basically write off the validity of everybody who is not a Christian. They say, if you're not one of us, you're going to be tortured eternally and deserve it. Mm-hmm. While it's long been known that numerous clerics are dubious about the historic creeds of the Church, the survey is the first to disclose how widespread is the skepticism. That's very interesting. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the Church of England right now. They just appointed a new archbishop. And this guy is supposed to be really extremely liberal. In fact, he is a member of a group within the church of the really liberal guys who largely reject some of the more extreme supernatural claims. So that's kind of interesting. We'll have to see where that goes. I mean, we did have the previous archbishop declare that atheism had won in England, and that most British people simply don't care about the fate of their eternal souls.
Well, I guess that's better than being the Catholic who makes a speech at the Man Boy Love.
Oh, boy.
Now, this actually could be considered somewhat good news, because you told me that you did this story before about the Big Brothers Big Sisters being hit by.
Yeah, we did the beginning of that story, but there's been new developments.
But the Focus on the Family wants to get the corporations to withdraw their fundings from Big Sisters and Big Brothers because Big Brothers Big Sisters says that all of their chapters, there's a 500 program. No, that's not the one. There's a bunch of them. They had a number. It was here, and I can't see it.
Is that right?
490 chapters are to accept gays and lesbians as volunteers. You just know that's not a consideration.
Right.
If you're going to volunteer, they're willing to accept you.
Oh, good.
Now, the Focus on the Family, that nitwit organization from Colorado, wants to get corporations and has been sending letter or email writing campaigns to try to get corporations to do this. So far, it seems to not be working.
Yay.
The boycott effort has not resulted in any corporate funding withdrawals, said Big Brother Big Sister spokeswoman Noreen Schanfelter, but said that it was not clear how or whether individual donations were impacted. Quote, I feel pretty safe to say that there has been no corporate donations lost. Larry Plum, a spokesman for the Verizon Corporation, said that the company has a long track record in support of non-discrimination and would not withdraw its sponsorship. Martin Kish, vice president of communications for Valvoline, said that this company was studying the Big Brothers Big Sisters policy, but so far remains steadfast in its support. Schanfelter said that Focus on the Family was trying to stir up controversy by claiming that the group was forcing agencies to match active homosexuals with children.
Right. No, all they're doing is not discriminating.
Yes, exactly.
They're saying it doesn't matter what these people do with their sexual organs in their free time. If they want to help kids, they'll let them help kids.
Right. So, score one for non-discrimination, big loss for Focus on the Family. And like the bumper sticker I saw the other day says...
Which is basically saying the same thing.
Yeah. This bumper sticker I saw the other day says, focus on your own damn family. All right.
That's a good idea.
Speaking of the world's children, World Youth Day organizers passed the collection plate. Toronto. World Youth Day organizers are asking people to dig into their pockets and make a donation. The group is facing a shortfall of about $30 million after last month's 6-day gathering in Toronto.
Dig into your own damn pocket.
The entire event cost about $80 million, and now the organizers are hoping the public will help pay the debt.
Oh.
Yeah, well, it's pretty frickin' ironic to have World Youth Day when most of your guys are involved in this gigantic cover-up of sexually abusing those very same youth.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I think, fair payback. We knew from the beginning that cash flow would be difficult, said Archbishop Anthony Meager.
Meager donation.
That's right, meager donation. From the Bishop's Committee for World Youth Day. He said they were expecting about 300,000 people who would pay $240 each, but there were fewer registrations than expected, and the payments from those who did register have been slow to arrive. He attributes low registrations to fear over September 11 and fear that the Pope's frail health would prevent him from making the trip. No mention of the fact that you're a big organization that has been covering up massive sexual abuse of children worldwide, Mr. Meager. In early April, the Bishops' Committee for World Youth Day held an emergency meeting with bishops from across the country who lent the committee $24 million. At that time, the organizing committee cut back spending and agreed to spend no more than $80 million. They're going to be putting large advertisements in newspapers across the country appealing to the public to donate. Yeah, well, good luck.
I had a conversation the other day with a couple of recovering Catholics.
Yeah?
And that's what they call them.
What were they recovering into, though?
No, they're very well agnostic, atheistic now.
Okay.
But apparently this pedophilia thing is no big secret. People in the Catholic Church have known about it for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
Right, but it's out of the bag
and
now.
Even the parishioners have known about it for a long time. Matter of fact, this one woman said that as a teenager, a priest in public grabbed her breast.
Wow.
While she was a teenager. And so this is no big. This isn't like they didn't know.
The same thing to Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing.
What do you expect out of a bunch of people that are supposed to just never do anything sexual in their entire lives? Of course they're going to do it.
And then you put them in a position of authority. And they got the same hormones as anyone else, but now they got no ability. They got no like chance to mature and come up with healthy ways to express that.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't have the biggest problem with. If you're going to take a vow of celibacy, that's your choice, but you should act on that. You know, don't say you're going to be celibate and then go hide around the corner while you do something kind of deviant.
Right.
You know, if you can't handle that, renounce your.
Hey, certain kinds of deviant things, that's okay with me too. Right? I think we got all kinds of rules about stuff that people shouldn't do that's completely silly. But
quote unquote deviance.
Yeah.
Amongst consenting adults, no big deal.
Right.
8-year-old, 6-year-old children, not a thing you can do.
Right.
This simply isn't done.
Yeah. Okay. Here's an interesting story: religion and corporate misconduct. Everybody remember this wave of corporate fraud and scandals and
you mean
things?
Enron?
Yeah. Check this out. Consider what a strong grounding in religion did for these titans of commerce.
Mm-hmm.
John Regas, the 78-year-old CEO of Adelphia Communications Corporation, is a devout Christian who has censored programming he deemed unseemly on his cable networks. For example, in 1998, Regas bought Century Cable in West L.A. 3 years later, he censored and then banned a racy advice show conducted by Dr. Susan Block, a Yale-educated PhD and sexologist. Okay, Adelphia Communications Corporation, big financial scandal. Regas, along with his 2 sons, stands accused of stealing hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, from the nation's 6th largest cable company, costing investors more than $60 billion. Bernie Ebbers, former CEO of WorldCom, is also a man of God, having attended Mississippi College, a Southern Baptist institution, and writing a 1996 alumni magazine article, quote, "I came to have a fuller understanding of what my purpose was in life, what a personal relationship with Jesus Christ really meant, and how I would try to live my life from that point." Ebbers, of course, is expected to be indicted this week in relation to his company reporting nearly $4 billion in inflated earnings, leading to the largest bankruptcy in our nation's history. He's also under fire for receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in personal loans from the company. Ken Lay, former Enron chairman and the son of a Missouri minister, is famously rumored to have attended church the day before he took the Fifth on Capitol Hill. He is being investigated for criminal wrongdoing related to Enron's spectacular collapse. Andrew Fastow, Lay's CFO at Enron, is currently involved in a conservative Houston synagogue. He teaches Hebrew school, his family set up a charitable foundation, and he's helped raise millions for Houston's Holocaust Museum. He also stands accused of setting up scores of offshore subsidiaries that masked Enron's massive debt load, leading to the bankruptcy of the nation's 7th largest firm. Interesting. You know, here we have the claim that we need to have belief in God, even if they can't prove that he's true. It's important that everybody be religious because that is the basis for morals.
Yeah, and then you see time after time after time after time, example after example of these godly people doing the most horrible things. From stealing your money to daddling your children and who knows what else.
Dandling, I think.
Dandling.
Doing
things that they shouldn't be doing. All right.
Okay. Okay. What do you got?
I have something that just cracked me up the first time I read it.
Ooh, okay.
It's actually scary, but some of the lines in here are just, you people are stupid. From the National Post. From the National Post, the title is Apocalyptic Beliefs Fuel Christian Support for Israel. U.S. fundamentalists are Jewish state's staunchest backers. At a time when Israel is increasingly beleaguered and bloodied, its strongest political and financial backing is coming from evangelical Christians, many of whom believe the Jewish state has to be supported so that Jesus Christ can return. The level of support is startling and growing rapidly. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, a Chicago-based group headed by Canadian-born Rabbi Yechiel Eckstein, said, and funded mainly by evangelical churches, has raised $60 million for Israel in the past 7 years. Last month, U.S. evangelical congregations raised $2 million, I'll get this right one of these days, to help about 400 U.S. and Canadian Jews immigrate to Israel.
Yeah. I heard a thing on NPR the other day. there is a big push on right now to get to convert people to Judaism and then ship them to the Middle East, where they populate illegal settlements. They're setting up not authorized by the Israeli government religious settlements in the West Bank, right? Because the people in Israel won't do it. They understand what they would be getting into, but they make Jews elsewhere in the world and ship them in to populate these places, so they can grab more land.
Well, Christian supporters of Israel argue that there are a host of reasons to back the Jewish state besides helping speed along the apocalypse.
Besides, as if that wasn't good enough. As if that wasn't reason enough all by itself.
Such as God's promise to Abraham in Genesis that those who bless Israel will themselves be blessed. So basically this is self-interest here. We're going to help Israel so that when Jesus comes back, he won't hate us.
Okay, now I make a practice of saying at least one extremely tasteless thing every show. And this one is going to be this at least is a nice change from the normal Christian reaction to Jews, which is to persecute them.
Yeah.
Right? Shipping them a bunch of money is,
But this is funnier. But the core reason for the overwhelming support for Israel among conservative Christians is the biblical prophecy of the end times, a view that has recently had a boost with the hugely successful novelization of the Apocalypse in the 10-volume Left Behind series.
Oh, good.
And we're getting the signal that we have.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it down. We know we got 2 minutes left. That's 2 minutes, and then we start music, right, Russell?
Correct.
Okay. I know we've mentioned that there is now a lawsuit to remove the Ten Commandments monument here from the state capital of Texas, Austin. Mr. Van Orden said he is not religious and believes that the 41-year-old monument is an endorsement of Judeo-Christian beliefs by Texas state government. It's another one of these ones that was put up as part of a PR campaign for the movie The Ten Commandments. Cecil B. DeMille funded putting up a lot of these things. Oh boy, we could go on to more, but let's just wrap it up now.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot in priestly pedophilia news lately. There's, I guess, enough things are going on to sweep that off of the headlines. But it's important that we remember what was going on there and not let it be forgotten in the general public. What? Nick, you got something?
I'm still reading this goofy story. It's just dumb. It says, come on, man. Speed along the apocalypse by giving $60 million to Israel.
Here's my last...
of course, because, if they don't support Israel, then Jesus won't come back.
Here's my last piece of email correspondence.
Let's start giving money to the Palestinians then.
Can I have my minute?
Yes.
Okay. This guy wrote to me, I don't usually forward mail, but this time I thought I would. September 11, 2002, a way to honor our nation together. September 11, 2002 is soon approaching. On that day, please wear red, white, and blue to work or school to show your support for those who lost their lives on 9/11/01 and to honor the heroes who worked to save them and their families left behind. At noon, your time, on September 11, 2002, no matter where you are or what you are doing, stop, put your hand on your heart, and say the Pledge of Allegiance out loud to yourself and say a prayer for our nation.
Out loud to yourself?
Out loud or to yourself. And I wrote, I don't see the wisdom of honoring the thousands who died on September 11 by dishonoring the millions of Americans who do not happen to be monotheists. Until the pledge is restored to its original secular wording, it alienates all American Hindus, Buddhists, agnostics, atheists, and just about anyone else who doesn't happen to be a Christian, Muslim, or Jew. If all of us do this together in every time zone around the world, we will have a powerful chain of thoughts surrounding us. America is supposed to be the place where people's thoughts are free, unchained, if you will. We will do our country a much bigger service by holding to our fierce individuality than by any act of herd symbolism. So, we're done. Thank you very much for listening. We will leave you again with They Might Be Giants. The song is Spiraling Shape, and we'll see you next week.